Buddy? Hey, we appreciate everybody joining us today in what is going to be a very historical week in our sport. My goodness, playoff time, postseason time with the Super Motocross World Championship. We appreciate everybody being here today, and we wanted to go ahead and meet with our broadcast team and give everybody a preview of what to expect this coming week from our TV package, but also what they can expect and thoughts from our entire broadcast team on this very historical week. So we appreciate everybody being here, and we'll go ahead and delve right in. And on today's call, we have, and our broadcast team will be Lee Diffie, Ricky Carmichael, James Stewart, Jason Wigan, Jason Thomas, and Will Christian, who are all on this call today. We're excited to have all of you. And we'll go ahead and we'll get started with you, Lee, real quick. And if each one of you could just give us some opening thoughts and your general thoughts going into our first round Super Motocross playoff number 1.
Thanks, Sean, and good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, wherever you're joining us from. I think just to hear you, Sean, saying the playoffs in regards to the Super Motocross World Championship means a lot. I think when we ask ourselves, where does this fit in, I can certainly say that when you think of premium properties and big events, NBC Sports is the home, right? So you think about the Olympics or Sunday Night Football, the Super Bowl, Big Ten has just started, Kentucky Derby, Indianapolis 500, Premier League, the list goes on. And now, really proudly, and we can all smile about it, that the Super Motocross World Championship fits right in there. So for everybody from Feld and MX Sports and the NBC Sports family, everybody's worked incredibly hard to make this the first year of a new 5-year relationship get off to just a phenomenal start. But I think now it's the culmination of a lot of hard work and a lot of realization now that, instead of a segmented portion of the year, where you're just focused on Supercross or just focused on Pro Motocross, I think it's really starting to sink in to everybody that it's running the course, it's doing the whole thing, it's over the course of the year, culminating in the Super Motocross World Championship. So lasting the distance, showing your endurance, and this building to a phenomenal climax to see who's going to win both of the classes come that phenomenal finale at the LA Coliseum. So a lot of excitement, and this slots perfectly into where it belongs within the package of premium properties at NBC Sports. So really looking forward to it.
Ricky?
Yeah, thank you. Great to see everyone. Obviously exciting times. Really, I am just over the moon and jazzed up for the inaugural season of the SMX playoffs and the SMX championship. At first 31 races, we thought, man, that was going to be a lot. But then, throughout the year, as you saw the anticipation of just what this might be, and I want to share a little story for everyone that is on today. 3 or 4 rounds into the Monster Energy Supercross series, myself and Lee Diffie were having a conversation about, what does this look like and just how important is it going to be? Then you fast forward to East Rutherford when we were at the Supercross there. And I think it was during the rain delay. And as we were speaking about it to each other, and in fact, James was in the booth with us that race also. And we were really getting a sense of just how big this was going to be. And you could see the importance of it as much as we were talking about it and educating people and educating ourselves, at least for me, for that matter. We could see the importance of what it meant to stick with it, and all these athletes stick with it and do the best that they can in Monster Energy Supercross, and maybe anticipating not racing some or the full schedule of the Pro Motocross series, but you could see the importance rising each and every week. And to be a part of something the inaugural season of the SMX World Championship and the SMX playoffs that start this weekend at ZMAX Dragway. It's special. Not very many times in life do you have the opportunity to be a part of an inaugural event or series or what have you. And I think this comes at a great time within the sport, the media package with NBC, and like I said, the streaming and Peacock, and the culmination between Feld Motorsports and MX Sports. It came at a great time. It really did. And we've come a long ways from the press conference announcing what this was going to be last year in October at the LA Coliseum. So to see what it's come to, and just to see how important it is from the athletes to the teams, and just see the buzz around it to maybe the novice viewer of SMX, the SMX Championship. I'm ecstatic to be a part of it. Like I said, the inaugural season of it, and to have playoffs. I think of all the great leagues and different disciplines and sports that have playoffs. How do you not like that? How do you not get into that? I mean, I'm guilty of. There's some sports I don't watch until the playoffs, and now finally, Super Motocross, we have that now for our sport. So it's exciting times. It's a great time for everyone involved. You name it: Feld, MX Sports, NBC, Peacock, myself, all the partners that go to the races week in and week out. So exciting times for sure. And again, exciting to be part of the inaugural season of SMX World Championship.
Thank you, Ricky. James?
Yeah, I kind of echo, I don't kind of echo, I do echo what Ricky just said, and Lee, as far as being a part of it on the inside, and also kind of having an understanding from a rider's point of view, and kind of having a little bit of insight of what those guys think about it. So I'll kind of just talk about what I've seen and heard from just the riders of this season, just going through the whole year, and the 31 being 28 rounds and now going into the playoffs. I think there was a lot of, wouldn't say confusion, but I guess curiosity from the riders, because it was new not only to them, but us as well. But I think what I've noticed is just how in tune, like every race, guys came back from injuries, guys kept racing, guys showed up. I just felt like they were more, everybody was racing kind of like they had a chance at an opportunity to win something. Usually when you get through, the first couple outdoors, I mean, it's pretty much over for 90% of the guys that's out there racing, with the way the points is. But this year, I've just noticed the racing has been intense from just watching as a fan, but being there. The racing has been intense from the gate drop, from Anaheim 1 to Ironman. Guys have been racing. And for me, I think it would have been a great opportunity. I would have loved to have been able to get back, at least have the laugh against this guy that was just talking before, in a playoff format, because usually, a few of these titles he had me in. So I think there's a lot of importance for the top guys coming in this, and also the guys who are like changing teams, guys like Chase Sexton, even though he's not changing teams, I don't believe, for this race, but there's still that point of trying to beat Jet Lawrence. You got Cooper Webb coming back, trying to build some momentum. And you also have a feel of like those guys trying to beat Jet Lawrence and trying to win this championship, and ultimately win the, Super Motocross Championship overall. But you have, guys coming back that has that feel of like the U.S. Open back in the day, the Monster Cup, where you can have a Justin Barcia come in and have an opportunity to win this championship. So although we've seen what happened outdoors and we feel like we have like a pretty good idea on favorites, I feel like with this format and just this three race format is new to everyone. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a guy like Justin Barcia or Jason Anderson. So just let alone, there's reasons for everyone out there, from Jet Lawrence to Cooper Webb to Kyle Chisholm, to be racing. But I think overall, I think we're in store for some historic racing, but just historic, opportunity just to see our sport grow. And I think everybody, including the riders and teams, they all bought into this, and I think we're about to reap the benefits here in a few days.
Thank you, James. Jason Wagon.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Great stuff there from Lee, Ricky, and James. So it was really cool behind the scenes. I think what's changed so much, we can all see a playoff schedule and the payout and the results and what that's all going to mean. But what I've noticed more behind the scenes is what this represents, which is a level of cooperation between the sanctioning bodies, the promoters with Feld Motorsports and MX Sports, the various wings of the AMA as our sanctioning bodies, and the teams and riders. I feel working together maybe more closely than they ever have. And as a reporter, I always feel like the thing that fans used to ask me the most that I'd say that's actually not how it works is they would always refer to it as our sport or the sport. And in previous years, I'd always say, well, it's not actually how it functions. As a fan, you watch all of it and you know it's the same riders and teams across motocross and supercross. But behind the scenes, it's individual teams, individual riders, trainers, sponsors, sanctioning bodies, organizations, all somewhat loosely working together. But what I think this super motocross format really represents is now everyone truly is working together. Now it truly is the sport or one league. So I think the playoffs to me are just the beginning. When you get this level of cooperation, who knows what we're able to do now that everyone is pulling in the same direction. And one example of that is the broadcast package. We've actually had both motocross and supercross on the same networks and even both on Peacock in the same year before. But there's never been this level of cooperation and collaboration behind the scenes and the investment too. I mean, you can see small examples of it when you folks watch the races at home with having 2 drones, and we're experimenting with onboard cameras. We have consistency with the announcing team throughout all 28 races so far, and we'll bring everyone back for these playoff rounds. But that idea of the consistency and in every meeting, let's get everybody in every meeting, let's get all the brains that love this sport together, pulling in the same direction. That's the most exciting part. It came out as playoffs, and this is going to be cool and interesting, but that's just a byproduct of everyone being able to work together in the first place, which wasn't always the case. So that to me is the most exciting part about it. And then secondary, like James said, the fact that the teams and athletes responded to that, we saw riders come back to the races that ordinarily wouldn't have to get ready for this. So it's just an example of what this level of collaboration that we finally have the sport working as a sport and not individual groups. That's what's making this so cool to me, besides just the playoffs, what this could mean for the future, because I'm sure we're going to have tweaks and new ideas coming down the road.
Thank you, Jason. Jason Thomas.
Yeah, I agree with so much of what Jason Wygant said there. And I want to just congratulate everyone who's had a part of this, whether it's MX Sports or Feld Entertainment or the team at NBC, because I've been in and around this sport my whole life and different avenues of it, different perspectives of it. And I've never seen everyone on the same page, much to Jason's point there. And we're seeing the growth come from that. This broadcast team is a perfect example of that, to have the perspectives of James Stewart and Ricky Carmichael on a call with the eloquence and the experience of Lee Diffie, then add myself and add Will Christian Weech, who's done, the Pro Motocross Championship for so long. The different viewpoints here will be phenomenal. And I think that will really show up throughout these 3 rounds. So to everyone, thank you. As a fan, thank you. And also congratulations on putting all this together. Now, as for my role as the on-track analyst, I've been trying to look at this from different perspectives. First, as a fan, as a spectator, going to this event, right? You're spending your hard-earned dollars. What are you going to see? Because in the beginning, I had this, I don't want to say fear, but I just didn't want it to be 3 more Supercross rounds. I didn't feel like that would be exactly what we needed. We've gone down that path, US Open, Monster Cup, these things. And I just felt like, man, if we could do something different, little did I know that was the plan all along, was to do something very different. And I got the opportunity to speak to Mike Muley on our SMX Insider show, go through the track maps tirelessly and kind of really look at what are they trying to accomplish with these rounds? What are they trying to present as a challenge to the riders? And I think the fans are going to be in for a real treat. You look at the weekend type event where there's all these great things going on Friday. They're going to get to see the riders practice on Friday. We're doing an SMX Insider show on Friday. There's pit bike racing on Friday. So there are all these things that really never happen. You know, it's really expanded that weekend event. Fans are going to be able to camp just like a pro motocross event. So it's going to be very unique in that aspect. And then the tracks itself, they're so much bigger than any Supercross round has ever seen. And I was looking at it as a rider going through these track maps. It's going to take a while to get these things memorized. They're going to be really long lap times, really broad. You know, when you think about a speedway event, it's just kind of narrow. You think about Daytona and the challenges that Ricky has to go through in building around all of these constraints at Daytona. I don't think we're going to see a lot of that. It's going to be the most expansive, broadest speedways type hybrid track we've ever seen. And I think about the imagination side of the track creators, what they have endless dirt, as Jason Wygant has shared with us so many times. So sky's the limit on what they can build. And I think we're going to see all of these different type obstacles. You're going to see a lot of the same Supercross obstacles that we love and the fans want to see, but differences, higher speeds, more open turns. So the racing is going to be a little bit better. But it's just going to be a truly, truly unique event. And as I mentioned, what I was hoping for was something we had never seen before, a different type of event that fans could really, really latch onto and look forward to year after year. You know, we're going to get 17 Monster Energy Supercross rounds and our 11 Pro Motocross Championship rounds. That's great. We all love that. That's why we're fans of this sport. But to have these 3 unique season-ending championship playoff rounds that are completely different, I think it's just what we needed. It's what we needed, and I didn't even know we needed it, right? So that speaks to all the people behind this that came up with these ideas and really put this dream together. And now we're on the precipice of it. And yeah, as you know, James and Ricky and myself, we were all riders in this sport for so long. I'm very jealous of the window that these riders are in, where they're going to get to tackle and experience this 3-round championship.
Thank you, Jason. Will.
Thank you, Sean, and good to see everybody. Hi there. I'm just honored to be back as a part of this broadcast team here as we head into the playoffs. I just feel truly lucky that we get to be a part of this, that we are involved in this incredible window, as you put it there, JT, of the sport, because it really is a very, very special time. And I know that we're all excited to be a part of that. Just to touch on something quickly that Ricky and James said when they talk about the collaboration of these 2 series and how this has worked. I had a very unique perspective for a number of years doing both motocross and supercross and going from one to the other, and watching the teams and the riders transition from one series to the other has changed in a way that I honestly wasn't prepared for. To see, I talk a lot about how I feel the mental side of this sport is such a chess game. And it's taken that chess game and it's just up to the level, the strategy that's now involved, and how the riders and teams are having to prepare themselves. Talk about injuries, as you said, James, and coming back from that, and how they're having to restructure everything has just been a learning curve. It's been a learning curve for us all, and it's been fascinating to watch them this year in comparison to seasons past and how they handle that. And that builds that excitement. And when you think, where is this all coming from? Like, what must they be going through? For us as broadcasters, as fans and viewers, it's extremely exciting, but it's a pressure cooker for these teams and these riders. And there's already so much on the line when they sit in the gates, and we have a Moto 1 for Pro Motocross gate drop, or we have heats even for Supercross. What these guys, as JT and Ricky and Chains will tell you, what they're going through is an incredible amount, and that's a gate drop for a single race. Now we come down to playoffs and we think about what's on the line. There is $10 million up across 31 rounds, $5.5 million for these 3 playoffs, including that final there at the LA Coliseum. $1 million for the 450s, $500,000 for the 250s. That's what they're racing for. And that, I mean, just an incredible prize purse, the biggest in off-road motorcycle racing. And then what about the bragging rights? The idea that it comes down to this, for the first time in the sport's history, we will have the guy. We will have somebody who can turn around and say, I can do this, I can do that, I can blend everything together. I have across the board, and I can understand our riders here who are on the broadcast team having a certain amount of envy for those guys getting to do that. being able to actually go, no, let's bring it right down. Let's bring it down potentially here to one race at the LA Coliseum with the way the points are structured, and be that guy standing there at the end of it saying, I am the best, I'm number one, and I am a super motocross world champion. It's incredible, and I'm extremely excited and honored to be a part of that. I can't wait to get it going.
Thank you, Will. All of our fans are extremely lucky to have all of you, a stellar broadcast team. I know I can speak on behalf of all of us. We appreciate everything that you guys do. We will now go ahead and open up questions to our media. If you would like to ask a question, please go ahead and use the question function. And if you would, go ahead and go on camera so we can see who you are. So first question will go with Michael Lindsay.
Actually, I have two, both race-related questions. The first one would be to James Stewart. James, whether it's yourself, a Chase Sexton, anybody at the highest level, when we ask, how do you tackle a championship run? Usually the most common answer is, one race at a time, one night at a time, because in standard Supercross or motocross, all the races hold somewhat equal value in terms of points payout, with the points on this one being standard, then double, then triple. You could say that the first round and even the second round hold somewhat less value than the finale. How would you tackle as a racer? Would you actually be strategic about your races, just trying to get through the first two consistently, or do you think you just stick with the old school racer mentality of one night at a time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it differs for different riders. I think with coming into this, Jet Lawrence, if let's say he comes in and wins the first race, I think he'll be set up pretty well. I think his mindset would be more on one, just hopefully continue what he just did a couple weeks ago at the end of motocross. But I think he's more likely to, if things aren't going good, more strategic, where I feel like Chase Sexton and some of the other guys, I think it's more about momentum, because I don't know outside of Jet, even though we are switching more to Supercross, so I think a lot of that's going to help some of these guys to feel like they'll be able to beat Jet. But I just feel like with those guys, it's more about momentum more than anything else, where again, if you're coming in per se Jet Lawrence or Hunter Lawrence in a 250 class, I think you can kind of treat it more of a strategic. And that being said, it's new to all of us, so a lot of this comes down to how they feel and the track, how practice goes. I think that's the beauty of this, is that no one really has an advantage coming into this. I mean, we could say Chase Sexton has the biggest advantage because he's the one leading the points, but outside of him, we all don't really know what this thing's in store for. So to kind of set up and say, I'm gonna play it like this, I think it'd be more off a feel and just kind of how you feel really going into it in the day. But I think me personally, I would just go out there and try to win the first race, set that tone, because winning the first race is going to let everybody know I kind of have this format dialed in, and it also sends a message. If I was getting beat by somebody all year, it kind of sends a message that that's over with, we're here now. So I would try to go out and win the first race, and then I think let the rest take care of itself, only because I don't really know enough about it and it's new to everybody. So
thank you, James. Second question is for Ricky Carmichael. Ricky, if you compare you and James's there, you guys had your own facilities, your guys' own ability to adapt your test tracks, your practice tracks as needed. Of course, in the modern day era of the sport right now, a lot of people have access to facilities. So you would have been coming off a full pro motocross championship going into these races. Charlotte's a little up in the air. I think even from looking at the track maps, we're curious how it's actually going to shape up. Our second round of Chicagoland looks like a jumbo Atlanta, and our final round is similar at LA, similar to what we've seen at Monster Cup. So for yourself, would you have just jumped straight back on Supercross? Like, I already have enough familiarity with motocross recently, I'm just going to pound Supercross laps. Or would you be trying to build a hybrid track? Would you be thinking about chasing a unique setup? Or again, do you think that would almost just spin you out and waste time? Would you just go with what you know?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you very much, Michael. Yeah, a lot to what James said. There's a lot of unknowns, if you will. A lot of different style tracks, definitely the hybrid track, it being fast, but then being super crossy at the same time. Z-Max being different than Chicago, like you said. And then, of course, the final round, the World Championship round in LA, more towards Supercross. So I feel you're going to have a balance. I feel the more intelligent rider that is in tune with his motorcycle and knows how to set it up for given tracks may have a little bit of an advantage, rather than some riders who just get on the bike and ride it and they rely more on the engineers and technicians. That's my opinion. I believe. I think with the way the point structure is, also, I know I'm going off topic and talking about bike setup, but I feel like with the double points and the triple points and then the two moto format, it really puts an emphasis on these guys to run up front and to be consistent, because there is an opportunity for these guys to lose a ton of points, and there's an opportunity for guys to make up a lot of points as well. So I think that's what the focus needs to be. And keep in mind, these are only 20 minutes. I say only, still a lot, but 20 minutes plus one lap, two of those. A lot of these guys, especially in that 450 class, they can go all out for that distance. So I think, obviously with Chase Sexton coming in as the leader, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But then, of course, Jet Lawrence, can he keep the streak going? But I don't think that we need to be thinking about other guys than Jet. I think, maybe James said it a little earlier, guys like Justin Barsha, guys like Ken Roxon. I mean, those guys shine in moments like this. Go back to the Monster Energy Supercross series. Those guys run up front all the time the first 5 rounds. So I would have a good grip on my bike. I would have a hybrid setup, probably a little more softer in the rear end, and maybe a little bit softer fork setting than what my outdoor suspension is. But I liked my stuff softer than, say, most guys. So that's what I would do. That way it would be pretty well balanced at all 3 rounds. I know that it would be probably soft at LA. However, I think it would be stiff enough to get the job done. So that's how I would approach it. It's going to be interesting. It's also going to be interesting to see which guys and which teams too can respond to all of these guys, to respond to all these tracks and all of the unknowns, like James was saying.
Mitch Kendra.
Hey guys, Mitch Kendra from Racer X. So we know this is a collaborated effort between Supercross and Feld and Motocross and MX Sports. This might be a little bit open-ended to who can answer this, but do we know kind of like the rule book approach with that? And do we have rule book officially? Is there kind of taking things from Supercross and taking things from Pro Motocross? I guess kind of what's the approach with that, just heading in to this first round?
Yeah, thanks. I can take that one, Mitch. I did talk to Mike Pelletier from the AMA this morning. The races are being officiated by the AMA there, Pelletier and his group, and they've done a pretty good job in Supercross the last couple of years, getting a lot more transparent on penalties and rules and things like that. The rule book is actually written by AMA Pro Racing. So that's part of that collaborative process. That's actually 2 different AMA groups that have loosely aligned themselves and worked together before. But the last couple of Pro Motocross rounds, you actually saw Pelletier from the AMA and Gene Crouch, CEO of AMA Pro Racing, really walking side by side and taking notes together. I saw them working on a rule book, even in the Colorado round of Pro Motocross, which is the very end of May, beginning of June. So the rule book comes from AMA Pro Racing. The rule enforcement is from the regular AMA, same folks that we saw in Supercross. And there are many questions, I think. I think they've done their best that they can to come up with every possible scenario they can imagine before we've actually had one of these races. And I think that's the one thing to keep in mind. This is really only about 11 months in the works, which is pretty quick to turn something like this around. I feel like they've come up with almost every scenario they could think of. I can't guarantee that there's something that no one imagined was going to happen with a completely different type of race and format and championship. I mean, we've never had anything new like this before. But it is the traditional AMA and AMA Pro Racing putting the rules, regulations, penalties, and officials together.
Cool, thanks. And I just had one real quick one for JT. So obviously you've been in the trenches with some of these guys throughout the Pro Motocross season and Supercross seasons. You guys talked about everybody has a chance and they kind of feel like they're still fighting for race wins. Somebody like Joe Shimoda, obviously finished strong for pro motocross, but had a supercross injury. What's kind of the vibe? I know a lot of the guys like really don't know what to expect, but what's the vibe for those kind of guys that are coming back from injury and finishing the season strong? Like, what's the, I guess, feeling for those guys that can still get a chance to win a championship, even if they miss some time this year?
Yeah, I think Joe Shimoda is a great example of that. I would also point to guys like Jason Anderson, who won 7 rounds of 2022 in Monster Energy Supercross. And then I don't think he had the 2023 season he was hoping for. So this is a real opportunity. He's going to come in a handful of points down, but nothing that can't be fixed, especially with an accelerating points system as we go through the 3. If you get hot at the right time, think if he won a couple of races here and ended up being the Super Motocross World Champion, what that would change the entire look of 2023 for him. It would change his career trajectory even. So I think for guys like that, it's a huge motivating factor. The Jet Lawrences and Chase Sextons, they've had fantastic 2023. So this could be icing on the cake, but those who haven't, this is your shot, right? You're going to get a reset. Yes, you'll be a few points down, but who cares, right? To get an opportunity to completely rewrite the outlook of 2023. And for those who are about to switch teams or all these things, what a great way to go into an offseason of testing and preparation for 2024 with a really strong 3-race stretch here. So I think it's a great opportunity for them. 2 completely different perspectives, right? If you've been on the winning end, Hunter Lawrence, for example, you just want to keep the momentum going. But if you didn't, if you had setbacks along the way, this is your chance. You could wipe away so much disappointment that you felt through 2023, and no one's even going to remember it if you come out swinging in these 3 rounds.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hey, and back to Mitch's original question, the rule book has been distributed to all the teams and all of the athletes, and it should be posted later on today at a brand new website called sanctioning.supermotocross.com. So sanctioning.supermotocross.com. And with that, Dan Beaver, NBC Sports.
For James and Ricky, both. LA is obviously going to be much different than the first 2 tracks, but looking at the track maps, how much different do you think ZMAX and Chicagoland are going to be from one another? Is there an increase in difficulty level between those 2? And then as part of that, with the 2X points going to Chicagoland, do you think that's going to change the intensity level because of because it ramps up the sense of urgency?
Ricky, you want to take that?
I think for sure, to answer your point, and thanks, Dan, I think that LA, for me, it would be harder. I think it's going to be more technical, more supercrossy, still faster than most of the supercrosses that we see in the Monster Energy Supercross series, but it's definitely not going to be as fast as I say the speeds are compared to Chicago, for sure. So I myself personally, I would struggle more in that. I would love the more of the designs from Chicago and Charlotte, just because that hybrid. I like the hybrid of the outdoor being thrown in there, just because outdoor was always a bit easier for me. So that's how I would look at it. So I would really want to try to build a gap coming into LA and take advantage of those first 2 playoff rounds coming into the World Championship round in LA because of the difficulty, especially if I was racing a guy like James, or, I mean, he shines on all of the courses, I mean, great champions shine on all conditions, but I just feel like he would certainly have a leg up on me coming into LA. So I think LA would be tougher for me.
Yeah, I kind of echo what you're saying. I definitely would have them covered in LA from looking at the track map, just looking at it right now. But no, I honestly, I think it really comes down to the way the tracks are laid out for the first 2 is going to help everybody kind of ease into it from a bike standpoint. Just the transition a week ago, we were racing motocross. So going into, Charlotte and then Chicago, at least there won't be a drastic change as far as getting on a supercross track or feeling like you're on a supercross track compared to what LA looks like at Charlotte and Chicago for sure. So I think it's going to help overall, just maybe some of the guys that take a little bit to get into the Supercross format. It'll help those guys out that it's not necessarily a full blown Supercross track. But which one would be maybe more difficult? I mean, there's going to be a lot of pressure coming to a lot of guys when you get to LA. So not only the track is going to be difficult and unique, it's just the whole format and having all that money on the line, and having the points the way they are. You can gain points. So I feel like, really, unless you just get a huge gap, really, no matter what you kind of do, these first two races, if the guys are consistent, that's behind you or right next to you, going to LA is going to be tough and difficult for a lot of guys, not only for the track, but just the fact is there's a lot of money on the line, and the guy that's a few points behind you can't just go out and win that race and can take the title. So again, I think it's a new. I think for everyone, you won't have the pressure of the past, the past history. I think everybody feel like it's a new opportunity to kind of create your own. Going into next year, you can have a guy that's won the first two races, and maybe something happens in the third one. He might have to overcome that, but I really just think everybody feels like they have a shot. And you can tell by the way they were racing the end of outdoors, like Justin Barcia, like Jason Anderson, and what JT said, he won 7 races last year. So 23 hasn't been the best season. I just think they feel like they got a shot. And the fact is, just to be the first, to be able to win and say I was the first, is a lot of motivation as well, outside of the money. So I think we're really in store for some good racing, even better than what we've seen all year.
And again, for both of you guys, if a gun was to your head, you had to put a percentage to Jet Lawrence continuing his perfect season, what would that be? Is his riding style uniquely fitted to outdoors, or the 450?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, history would say he's a better Supercross rider than he is outdoors. I just think what we've seen him in the past, how he rides a motorcycle, I think the 450s kind of even changed that. I think this bike fits him better. But I think we're Ken Roczen. I think this format sets up for a guy like Ken Roczen really well. So I believe if Jet goes down, it might not be to Chase Sexton or one of the guys we think. I think it'd be a guy like Ken Roczen. Ken's had only time he raced Jet, he feels like he had a good showing against him. And since Ken has been racing Supercross, maybe he feels like he's better prepared for this than Jet. I don't think the tracks, I mean, all these guys are good. So I don't think the Charlotte track's going to favor one rider or the other, except for more the format. I think it sets up for maybe a guy like Ken Roczen, and to the point that was made earlier, that it's 20 minutes. So I guess it's not like the endurance is going to be a huge part, considering just coming off of outdoors. So overall, I think if I was going to say, I would say he wouldn't be undefeated. Not saying that he doesn't win the overall, not saying that he doesn't win the championship, but I just got a feeling that you'll have that guy that shows up and at least get one of these races in there. So if you're asking me, I might be dead at the end of the LA if we're putting a gun to my head, but I would say no. I don't think he will be.
Yeah, I think a lot to what James said there, Dan, is I think that his percentage, to answer your question, I think is lower for going undefeated in the playoff rounds and the World Championship round in LA. The field is, we're going to have pretty much everyone in the field except Eli Tomac. So there's that. We'll start with that. The races are shorter. I just think the margin of error is smaller also for him. I think there's a lot of money on the line, a lot to kind of what James has said, and everyone's talked about. Even Will brought up a great point. There's so much money on the line. There's some incentive, and make no mistake about it, as a guy like Jet keeps having those dominant performances like he does, in my mind, it just makes more fuel for the fire for the other guys like the Ken Roxons, Jason Anderson. I really liked what I saw from Jason Anderson late in the Pro Motocross Championship. His speed was good. He was coming from behind at a time when he could have laid down super easily. I think these faster tracks may be good for him. But I do think, to your original question, I think his percentage of going undefeated in the SMX is lower because of the reasons that I just talked about.
Thank you.
Victoria?
Hi, I have a question for both Lee and for Will. With the incentives and the fiscal incentives behind the SMX playoffs, we saw a meteoric rise in the amount of international riders coming out during the outdoor season. With your international upbringings and career backgrounds, how do you view this as an impact on the sport? And do you think this will continue into the Supercross season and then into next year's Moto season?
Will, why don't you go first, and then I'll follow you.
Okay. It's been fantastic, hasn't it? Thanks for the question, Victoria. It's been great to see the direction that this has gone in. It's been truly an international sport. It always has been, but in a very different way, recently. And the format that we now have, I think, and as Lee Diffie there talked about at the beginning of this press conference, the company that it now puts that format, the sport, in as one of the NBC properties, where it's going media-wise, the viewership on Peacock globally, how everybody can access all of it, and what they see from it, I think is only going to make that grow, if that answers the question. We've seen fans transition from being perhaps just, this is an American sport. They're the American fans for their American riders, and we've seen that dynamic shift, and this becomes about supporting your rider, the personality of that guy. They each have the person that they want to follow, and I think to see what we have in the sport, to see the personalities, the riders, the enormous global sort of spread that we now have, I feel lucky. I don't know if you share this view, Lee, but I feel like we are truly lucky to have that on the media side of things, because it's just this incredible pool of talent to draw from, these incredible personalities, and the fan base has just taken a hold of that. And I think this format is going to be absolutely fantastic to put that out through the channels there on NBC and just simply grow it globally. I talk to people back home, and they are watching at whatever time in the morning, and they're following the sport, and not to help sort of support us, but they just get gripped into it. They've got their guys to watch. They're watching Max Anstey, they're watching the Lawrences, they're watching Bertrand, they're watching it. That they have an investment in it, and I think it's absolutely huge. And the platform that we have with NBC to allow them to watch that now is going to play a massive role.
Yeah, that's a great point, Victoria. Thanks for the question. And to your point, and unless he's here in the US, look, as a case in point, Alex Gobert's on this call. So if he's not in Charlotte, North Carolina, he's up in the middle of the night in Sydney, Australia. So there's your global reach for you. But look, all you have to do is listen to what JT said and to what James and Ricky have said. And Ricky's sitting there at home, and you look at all those #1 plates in the background, but neither of those guys have one of these, and they would dearly like it. And our great mate, the king of the calculator, Clinton Fowler, always gives us amazing statistical support. And earlier this year, so we could all start getting our heads around what this means, not only here in the US, but globally. So we've got the column of Supercross points, we've got the column of Motocross points, and then hypothetically, Clinton made a third column of what that would look like career-wise. For Bob Hanna, for the Ricky Johnsons, for the Jeremy McGraths, for James, and for Ricky. And there's that column, and it's absolutely fascinating. And that's what we're on the precipice of now, because if you put it in terms of the NFL, right? Unless your team wins the Super Bowl, you're hanging on to divisional champion or conference champion or whatever, but nobody else remembers that. They only remember the Super Bowl champion. And that's where we're at now with Super Motocross. And that's how that's going to resonate around the world. And to your question of international riders coming here, they know that because if they want to be regarded as the best in the world, this is the series that they come to.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Alex, Moto Online.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. For Jason Thomas, how much do you think the riders will learn, the riders and teams collectively in this opening round, in Charlotte, and then how do they apply that from week to week as the 3 events go on?
Yeah, I think a big part of this will be adaptability, right? And just as everyone on this call has learned over the last 11 months about what this is going to look like, that learning curve is going to accelerate really, really quickly on Friday as teams go out on the track for the first time Friday afternoon, and then they learn this new format and the way these tracks are built, different, venues. There's going to be a lot of learning, and I think the riders that really pay attention are strategic about how they approach these things. I believe the starts are going to be very, very important. Even though we have a longer race format, when you don't have standard supercross loops and some of these things, I think the starts are going to be really critical. So you're going to have to really nail every aspect of the race. And yeah, I think learning is a big part of that, right? Coming in, being communicative with the team about your motorcycle settings coming out of motocross. You don't want to go with a full supercross setup like Ricky said, but you want to find a happy medium there. So, you don't get too deep in the strokes through these rhythm sections, so you can stay lower. And I know for some of the BD on that call, that may be higher level, but for the athletes, that's really important, is to find ways to attack the track without going too soft on the settings, like Ricky talked about with the motocross setting. So yeah, with a hybrid race like this, it is going to be a learning curve, and those that learn the quickest will likely see the best results. So not only that, I think, they were going to this grid start and finding the right setup with different dirt. It's going to be more clay based than a lot of the motocross races were. So how do they attack that with the tire choice and also their fork guard setting as far as height for the starts? Where do the ECU settings go with the different start? A lot of these riders are using specific settings for the start. Does a harder packed dirt affect that setting, right, versus what motocross was? So there's a lot in there and a lot of technical aspects of this that, yes, they'll lean on the technicians for it, but they've got to be giving the right feedback too, right? Technicians can only go off of what you're telling them and the direction you may, if you send them down the wrong path, they're going to go down the wrong path. That's a really probably underreported aspect of the sport, is technicians and settings are only as good as the rider's input giving it to them. So yeah, I love newness because I think it forces riders out of their comfort zone. They have to think a little bit. And as James says all the time, right, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And we're going to find out very, very quickly who is ready for this and kind of on point.
No worries. Thank you all. Look forward to it.
Jonathan McCready.
Just a question for James and Ricky. If you could go into the shoes of Chase Sexton coming into this series, he sort of has the chance to redeem himself against Jet Lawrence. How motivated would you be to beat Jet and to win this title that both of you never had the chance to win, but also heading into 2024 with Jet moving up full-time 450s?
Did you say Chase?
Yeah.
Chase, yeah, from Jet winning everything in the summer.
I mean, me personally, I'd be really motivated, coming into this year. And I mean, coming into this, the playoffs, just like you said, just what happened to outdoors. I think the benefit for him is that it's a different format. So the scenery changes. You're going to go back to Supercross, and so for me, I'd be motivated. It's no secret that I think he's going to be changing teams. So I don't know how much this is all in on him. Like, I know he's all in, but I don't know if he feels like so motivated that he's going to do whatever it takes to beat him, considering that, in 3-4 months, he's going to be on a different team and showing up at the first round on a new bike and And then that would be a reason why things are changed, and what happened in the past, they only happened because of the equipment. Now I got new stuff, so things are going to be different. But yeah, I think just from a standpoint mentally, I, it was the last race after the first moto was the first time I ever seen Chase since he's been racing Jet really kind of looked like he was beat. He was kind of like he didn't have an answer for it. So, after that second moto, his interview, he said he was motivated and he's not done winning. So, yeah, I think he'd be really motivated to kind of come in and stop. And the fact is, I think it's going to help Chase that you'll have like Ken Roxon and maybe some other guys that step in that Jet would be worried about as well. So that'll kind of take a little bit of pressure off Chase. He'll be one of the guys that's trying to beat Jet instead of pretty much the only guy that could beat him. So yeah, I think he'll be motivated, and we'll see how motivated he is in a couple of days.
Yeah, that's right. You're exactly right, James. And Jonathan, yeah, thanks. Great question. I mean, listen, I think that all these guys want to beat Jet, not just Chase. Ken, Jason Anderson, you name them. They all want to win. And I don't necessarily know how much they want to beat Jet more than they want to win the race and win that $1 million and win that inaugural SMX World Championship. So make no mistake about it too. And I didn't have an opportunity to tell anyone or what my thoughts were just about the SMX World Championship. Make no mistake about it. It is the pinnacle of dirt bike racing, of all the other world championships and what you name it. In my opinion, and we got the riders to stand for it. This is the pinnacle of dirt bike racing. So to win here and to win this SMX World Championship with all these worldly riders, that should be enough incentive outside of just going out and trying to dethrone Jet Lawrence. So it's going to be exciting, and James talked about it a little bit. This is the last chance for the year for Chase to come out and for a lot of guys to come out and beat him and win another championship, win that money. So the incentive is there outside of trying to beat Jet.
And just another question on the format. There's 3 rounds at the minute. Will that change looking at how this year goes to maybe 4, or is there any concrete plans for that going forward?
Yeah, I don't. That's not my jurisdiction.
2024, we're looking at 31 events overall, just like this year in 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Brad, Verb Moto.
All right, thank you, Sean. This one's for James, and then I'll also have Ricky chime in. James, let's spin the clocks back to 2005, 2006. You unable to get championships in those rookie and sophomore years for your 450 career. What would your perception at that time be of the playoffs? Let's, for a moment, imagine you didn't do your wrist in 2005. Would the playoffs feel like unfinished business or an opportunity to put an exclamation point on the year? Or what would your thoughts be? And then for Ricky, you just wrapped up a couple of championships. For those last 3 rounds, would you be thinking of like, oh, I just finished 2 championships. I got 3 more rounds to do, and these guys are going to keep sweating me? Or what would you be thinking? James, go.
Yeah, great question. I it's easy to sit here and say, well, it depends on which side of the fence, because if I won 2 championships and I'd be like, if I didn't end up winning this title, I'd be like, well, I mean, I already got the other ones. But I don't think overall the guys race like that all year. I mean, they're racing, and from what I've seen, they're racing like this is the end goal. Speaking in other sports like playoffs, football, I don't think it does any good to win a conference championship and don't win the actual championship. And so I think that's a way kind of look at this, and the way everybody's racing. These 3 rounds are the playoffs until winning the Super Bowl. And so I think if you can, I'm sure Ricky you feel the same way. If you can win all 3 of them, then that just shows that how dominant you've been all year. But I don't think it's going to be, if let's say Chase Sexton or Jet Lawrence don't win it, and it's Justin Barcia, I don't think those guys would be like, well, that's just that's a fluke. That series doesn't really matter. Clearly, it matters. You got guys from other championships coming over here and getting enough points to be in this one, and so I really think that the format and how I would look at it is, yeah, I got hurt, but I came back, and I've been able to make the tournament. And making the tournament, I can end up winning the whole thing. And winning the whole thing to me is winning the Super Bowl. No matter what happens all year, this gives me that opportunity. So, yeah, like I said, it's conference championship. That's great. But this is the Super Bowl, and that's kind of what we want to win. And the money that's on the line would say that this does matter. And so that's how I'll be looking at it.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Brad. Yeah, with the way it is, and it's a new way of thinking. Right? It's completely different way of thinking. A lot to when there was a Grand National Championship back in the day. But the crown jewel is the World Championship, 100% about it. And I think it's just the way that we're going to have to learn to think of it as, hey, the championship's nice. The conference championship's nice, like to James was saying. But I guarantee you, I shouldn't say guarantee you, but I would forfeit all these race wins for a world championship any day of the week and twice on Sunday, 120%. And to answer your question, Brad, yeah, after winning the Supercross championship, Motocross championship, I mean, you have to keep that momentum going, and I do my damnedest to win that world championship, because it is, and especially this day and age, it's the crown jewel.
Last quick follow-up, James, I know you were on the two-stroke in 05. Would you have been canvassing Kawasaki to let you ride the 4-stroke in the playoffs? Because by then it would have been homologated, and that was a damn good bike. And James, you won the 05 Supercross championship, the last to ever do it on a 2-stroke. Would you switch back to a 2-stroke for the playoffs, or would you stay 4-stroke?
Well, I mean, if you'd have got beat down as bad as I got beat down outdoors, I mean, I would have been happy to get off that thing. And yeah, I think even back then, how much the 4-strokes improved now compared to back then, they were already better than the 2-strokes, like when they first came out. So, looking at the format and looking at the track, I think 450s. Although 2-strokes would sound cool, I would have definitely went 4-stroke. I would have had to have something that would have been changed. I would have been in Chase Sexton position. I would need something to change to have a different result. So, no 2-stroke. That would have been it for me.
That would have been the big change. What about you, Rick?
I mean, for 2005, yeah, I would have stayed, because I raced I won the championship on the 2-stroke. I would have stayed on the 450, hands down. There was just so much development and R&D going into those bikes. The manufacturers knew that was the future, and really they were unstoppable. Because if you think back to 2005, we weren't operating under the homologation rule for that RMC 450. So mine was basically like a full works bike. So yeah, I would have stayed on that for sure. And that was kind of the turning point of where the 2-strokes were, their time had surpassed them. So for sure, 4-stroke, 100%.
Well, you both broke my heart, but that's okay. I'm excited for this, boys. This is gonna be good.
Right.
I know that Lee Diffie has to leave here for an IndyCar, as well as Nate Ryan. Nate, do you have a question? Do you want to jump in here real quick before you need to leave for the IndyCar call?
Maybe Nate's already jumped off. I'll jump in, Sean, and just say thank you. And on behalf of the broadcast crew, Todd Harris is going to rejoin us for the playoffs and the championship finale. For Will and the two Jasons and James and Ricky, we're all super pumped. It's incumbent upon us to get some more viewers, get some more eyeballs on the screen, keep spreading the message about how much this means and how exciting it is. I can tell you that throughout the course of the season, from the four-wheel world, there have been people come because of NBC's involvement and that had never seen either pro motocross or supercross before, and they are instant fans, and they are instantly hooked, and they're going to be watching the playoffs and the championship finale at the Coliseum as well. So, I mean, it just underscores a lot of these athletes are such humble heroes as to what they do and what their skill sets are. And it's incumbent upon us just to get that to a broader audience, which we take a lot of joy and a lot of pleasure in doing. So thanks for the questions. This is not the end of the call. This is me just saying goodbye because there's a lot going on in motorsport right now. It's IndyCar Championship weekend coming up. So thanks so much, and look forward to seeing you all in LA, and have a great weekend this weekend in Charlotte. We'll see you soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Lee. And we'll take one final question. Michael Lindsay.
Yeah, question's actually for Jason Wigan. I feel like you might be one of the best first to give an opinion on this. So when it comes to playoffs in motorsports, really the premier motorsport that has a playoff system is the NASCAR Cup Series. You're well-versed in working in both industries. So that playoff system for the Cup Series has been controversial over the years from the fan base. There are people that like it, people that don't. You got your hardcore fans that have never adapted to it. Some of them have. It's brought in some new. Your thoughts comparing the format we have, at least for our opening year? What do you think some of the positives we have that might, kind of nullify some of the negativity that NASCAR saw? And then also vice versa, is there anything you see from the NASCAR format that you actually think we could pick up on and use to make our playoff system better?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. One overwhelming positive that we have with the format in Super Motocross is that the traditional championships remain intact. So if you are a purist and you just don't like the idea of adding events, different events, the idea of playoffs, whatever it might be, the traditional races are still there. And not only that, they're the same venues, the same dates. If you love Redbud in July and you love Anaheim in January, that is all still there. And it certainly isn't like the Chase Sexton Monster Energy Supercross crown or Jet Lawrence's perfect season or Hunter Lawrence's championships haven't been celebrated at the same level that they always were. So if you're a purist and that's what you like, and it's kind of crazy that people would judge before they've seen it, but we know how the world is these days, that is still intact. And that is, to me, the huge difference, where the traditional championships are still there and there aren't any plans for them to go away ever. So that's great. I know on the NASCAR side, they tweaked it to eventually turn into the few races at the end of the year are what decide the title. And now it has changed over the last 10 years into drivers get eliminated with every couple of races. I don't know if that's a format that could come here. It definitely, what I found is every time they introduce a new format, it leads to chaos. And there's certainly something to be said from that, from a drama standpoint, how exciting that is, until the drivers and teams eventually figure out a way to work their way through that system. Then they come up with a new system to try to throw another curveball in. So maybe it's possible just to make changes for change's sake, just to keep everybody guessing, because when we were at Ironman talking to the riders, I feel like the thing they were most excited about wasn't just the money. It was actually the great unknown, because no one knew what to expect. And I was surprised how many were smiling over that, as opposed to on the fence because they didn't know what to expect. So that might be the only thing to take. Change every once in a while for change's sake sometimes leads to chaos in racing before anyone can get their arms perfectly wrapped around a system. But the main thing is we still have the existing titles, which I think is a huge, huge step to do it right.
Thanks for your opinion and point of view there, Weege. Sean, Brennan, I was going to ask this one of Lee, but I'll ask you this to close out. So part of the exciting part with us having playoffs is the talk of, hey, other sports have it. As Ricky said, some people tune in just when playoff starts. It can draw in a new audience. It can create new buzz. However, of course, other sports have been doing this for a long time. That's their most premier time of year. From a viewing package standpoint, we have 2 of our 3 rounds on USA. We have one that is not live on linear television. We don't have any directly on NBC. Is that just part of us doing it first year? Do you think that's a point we could get to? And do you guys feel like it's important to eventually get there? Because I would think that would be our point to offer, our opportunity to seize to get this sport in front of new people and possibly excite them.
Yeah, thank you for announcing the tune in and when we'll be. You just took that off my plate, so thank you, Michael.
Do them on USA.
But absolutely, as you mentioned, yeah, the home NBC. We certainly do anticipate some of the rounds, coming up in future years to be on what we call the mothership of NBC. So for this year, we're excited to be on USA Network as well as Peacock. So, logistics with TV programming can be, a difficult challenge and something that is an ongoing jigsaw puzzle, if you will, but that is definitely part of the conversation for future years. Absolutely. So with that, Ricky and Will and James, we thank you so much for being a part of this today. We look forward to seeing you very soon. And for everybody else, Jason and JT, Jason Thomas, our two SMX insiders, are going to head and now present our athlete lineup. So again, broadcast team, thank you so very much for making time for us today. And we'll see you this week in Charlotte.
Thank you, Sean. Good to see everybody.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Anything else, Sean, or?
Yes.
No, I didn't know if it was continuing. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, we're continuing. So now Jason and Jason, our SMX insiders, announce the lineup. Who is racing this coming weekend?
Yeah, so as you folks probably know, real quick, the rules are simple. If you're in the top 20 in combined points, Supercross and Motocross together, you're guaranteed entry into the motos. So most of those names would be familiar on this list. And the 450 division, unfortunately, you're missing one rider who did qualify in the top 20 in points, and that is Eli Tomac, who will not be returning for these playoff rounds, although he did announce he'll be back at least for Monster Energy Supercross next year. So that means 19 of the 20 riders are automatically in based on points. The names are, again, familiar. Top seed is Chase Sexton, Aaron Plessinger, Jet Lawrence, Adam Cianciarulo, Dylan Ferrandis. Cooper Webb will return to racing. Jason Anderson, Ken Roxon, Justin Barsha, Freddie Noren, Grant Harlan, Garrett Marchbanks, Ty Masterpool, Justin Hill, Kyle Chisholm, Dean Wilson, Shane McElrath, Colt Nichols, and Josh Hill takes the final spot. That's the 19 riders out of the 20 that qualified. And then the riders ranked 21 through 30 in combined points were guaranteed entry into the LCQ, but due to injury or scheduling or the rider or team making the decision to not go, not all of them are able to participate, mostly due to injury. So we do have a lineup of riders in the last chance qualifier. The idea is to have 10 riders in the last chance qualifier. They will race for 3 positions. It was originally 2, but Tomac not being part of that top 20 opens up 1 additional spot to get in to the LCQ. So the following riders in the 450s will race for 3 spots through the LCQ to get into the motos. It's Phil Nicoletti, Kevin Morans, Justin Starling, Josh Cartwright, Jerry Robin, Jeremy Hand, Bryce Shelley, Jace Kessler, and Max Miller. And I believe they're looking for 1 more rider to fill spots. Luca Marsalisi was originally in, but it's dropped out. So that's your 450 lineup. I'll give it to you in the 250 class. Again, top 20 in points. The only 2 riders that are missing from the combined top 20 of the 250s is actually Jet Lawrence, who qualified in the 250 division, but he'll be busy racing a 450 at these races. And Chance Hymas did qualify top 20 overall in points, but he's out with a knee injury. Everyone else of the top 20 is in. In order by combined points, it's Hunter Lawrence, Hayden Deegan, Levi Kitchen, RJ Hampshire, Joe Shimoda, Tom Viel, Maximus Voland, Justin Cooper, Jordan Smith, Jalik Swoll, Ryder DeFrancisco, Talon Hawkins, Max Anstey, Pierce Brown, Dylan Schwartz, Carson Mumford, Caden Broswell, Seth Hamaker. And again, all 18 of those riders have confirmed that they will be competing. Some were out with injury. Some have come back from injury. Some didn't race Supercross. Some didn't race Motocross. But those 18 riders are confirmed to be racing. We're only missing Hymas and Lawrence from the 250 group because Jet's racing a 450 and Hymas is hurt. Our LCQ group for the 250s, again, a lot of injuries of that group. That's why a lot of them are out of the top 20 in points. Here are the riders that are healthy and will be racing. Chris Blows, Derek Kelly, Colin Park, Austin Forkner, Cody Schock, Preston Kilroy, Josh Faries, Michael Hicks, Hunter Yoder, and Luke Neese. Those are the riders that are healthy and committed to racing all 3 of the playoff rounds. I have heard if you're ranked 21 through 30 and you're currently hurt, you're still eligible to come back for 1 or 2 of the other remaining rounds. We don't think that anyone's going to heal up within 10 days to be ready for round 2 or round 3, but they do have that option if they want to. It's probably unlikely. So this is probably going to be the field you're going to see at every race.
Yeah, I was just going to add quickly there. When you start thinking about how these fields are going to fill out, and the 250 class, the name that jumps off the page there to me is Austin Forkner, right? And you look across both classes, you know, the 450 class has a lot of privateer names. I think opportunity there, but for Austin Forkner, this is a guy that could win. You know, he's won lots of these Monster Energy Supercross races. He's really started to find his pace late in pro motocross as he returned. And he's got to look at this setup and be very thankful, because I think he's going to get in out of these LCQs, that he looks to be the class of the field as long as things don't go awry for him. And then once he gets in, the sky's the limit. You know, it looked like Monster Energy Pro Circuit Kawasaki really found something late with their engine package in pro motocross. And for him, he can probably get a start from anywhere, similar to Seth Hamaker coming back into this as well. So those guys, you may not be thinking about them. You know, all eyes are going to be on Hunter and Hayden Deegan and the storyline from pro motocross, but I think there's going to be a few wrinkles in there that we're not necessarily immediately thinking about. And then the 450 guys, you know, I was in this position many, many years, right? You're a privateer, you're looking for opportunities to not only get into a race like this, but also make a lot of money. And if you could make these main events, a guy like Kevin Moran's, or take your pick of these guys, Josh Cartwright was so good in so many LCQs this year. You put some good results up on the board in these finals, and you are in the points, making lots and lots of money. So I think when opportunity shows up, you have to be your best self. And with the names, with the, you know, the 450 class especially, the door is wide open for 3 of these guys to get into these main events. And man, I would be locked in right now. And I just think it's such a great opportunity and a great thing that's happened for these privateers. You know, we're all going to be focused on Jet and Chase and how does that all play out. And we're going back indoors, and that fight will continue. But I would ask all of you, you know, as we're reporting this, you and I and everyone else is on this call, don't forget about these privateer guys. This is a historic 3-race series in this, you know, Super Motocross World Championship playoff. They're going to have their names in the history books here. Some of these privateers that get in these main events, and it's something they'll never forget. So I just don't want some of the lesser known guys to get left out of some of the storylines here, because it is going to be a truly historic thing.
Thank you, gentlemen. And could you real quickly top line some of the elements to this Friday's lineup? What is happening on Friday?
Yeah, no problem. We've been talking about the 2-day format. Not racing on Friday. All the racing is on Saturday, but there will be a free practice on Friday at each event. So we're going to start with a live press conference at 11 a.m. Friday at all 3 races, and then practice will begin about noontime. We wanted to give the riders obviously more track time since they've never competed on a track like this. So that's the same schedule for all 3 Fridays, 11 a.m. press conference, noon riding. There will be autograph sessions after the riding. That's around 2:30, 3 in the afternoon. We'll have music to entertain the fans in and around that autograph session. And we'll also do our own show similar to this with JT and I and Ricky and James, everybody else in our broadcast team at 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock each night at all 3 rounds, trying to give the fans something to watch so they can make this a full race weekend and give the riders a chance to get on the track the day before, which we don't do at the traditional races and Pro Motocross or Monster Energy Supercross. So that's the main thing to keep in mind. Noon, bikes will be on track at all 3 rounds on Friday.
And we will also have pit bikes on track, won't we?
Yeah, we will have pit bike racing. They got some big names being floated out there. I talked to Ryan Villapota this morning. I think he's in for it. Some names that are going to shock you. I don't know if I can reveal that yet. That'll be in these pit bike racing. They'll be at 4:30 and 7 p.m. On the track. So that'll be pretty wild. 4:30 is their qualifying and 7 p.m. is their race after our live show on Friday.
Carson Brown, Ryan Villapoto, and Brian Deegan are all confirmed for Friday. So that won't be the only ones racing, but we can go ahead and confirm those names.
Oh, the Deegan one. That was the one I was going to say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Brian Deegan Racing. Yes.
Brian Deegan is in. And then just a couple other things just want to mention. I know that I've seen comments from fans about the LCQs, whether they'll be televised. They will be part of our race day live broadcast. So you can let fans know that the LCQs 12:30 will be the 250 LCQ. That will be part of the race day live programming. And then 12:41 will be the 450 last chance qualifier, also live on Race Day Live. It is a 2-moto format, the racing, and it will be 20-minute plus 1 lap motos. I know that I have seen some comments online as well, and some fans may still have some confusion around those. We will be releasing a press release after this press conference, so just about everything we covered here today will be a part of that, including everything that we talked about, as well as the final athlete lineup. And we will also have an SMX Insider video from Jason Thomas and Jason Wygant going through the athlete lineup. So we'll be distributing that momentarily. In addition to where fans can tune in this weekend domestically on Peacock and the USA Network. And then just as a reminder for all of our international fans, they can all tune in live as well via our Super Motocross Video Pass. So with that, thank you everybody for joining us today. I know we went a little bit long, but that's going to be, this is this week, very historic. We're excited to be here, and we look forward to seeing all of you in a couple of days in Charlotte. So thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys. Thanks for coming.